I have the privilege of teaching in-person workshops once in a while. I suppose I could be doing a lot more of them than I do, but I gotta paint pictures for a living and I gotta keep working. Well, this was the subject of my most recent workshop in a little place just north of Toronto, a town called Bradford. That's Bradford, Bradford, Ontario. We'll be having another one in June, and if you'd like to join me, I'd be thrilled to have you come in for the class. But I digress. Let's talk about this beautiful painting right here. The scene that you see right now is what was laid in place for the workshop. In other words, it was an elementary workshop based on the structure and the foundation colors of a small sketch of a sunset. I had laid in the Prussian and royal blues, but I really want to create a little more depth, and so for the purpose of this video, that's where we're going. We're going to take it a step farther. In fact, a few steps farther. Often with paintings, it takes layers to bring them to their full power or strength. And in this painting, it was a little bit on the flat side, so I just felt that by darkening the bottom and I'm mixing a little bit of cobalt blue with, dare I say it, a little bit of black. Not much, just a touch. Only enough to give the blue a bit of a grayish tone. And down along the bottom of the water, I like to darken that area with that tone. You'll notice that I'm painting around the reflections of the sun and of the sky. That's because I painted them first, and the reason why I painted them first is because when you paint around objects with oil painting, you create a beautiful three-dimensional kind of an impression. And that's exactly what's happening here. The mere textural edge of one application of paint up against another, in other words, the water up against those reflections, well, that texture is what establishes that three-dimensional kind of a look. It's very effective. You should try it. And that same dark tone that I put into the water, I'm going to put along the lower edge of the clouds. I really want to contrast these clouds against the sky a little bit stronger than what was established on the first layer. And so just a slight little accent here, not too much. And I'm using a smaller brush. This is probably a number 2 filbert. It's quite used, quite beat up, as you can see. I use my brushes until they can't be used anymore. And then I have this pile of them now, like most artists accumulate a pile of brushes. And one of the coolest things about this art career is the way oftentimes collectors, purchasers of my art, will ask for some tool or something that was used in the creation of a painting. I've been in collectors' homes, and it's quite astonishing in a wonderful way. It's actually a real pleasure to see on the wall a frame, one of those shadow box frames, and a couple of McAfee brushes mounted with a little brass plaque stating when they were used and the paintings they were used on. Now, isn't that a cool addition to your art collection? The tools that were used in the painting. Well, I never would have thought, but I'm thrilled to provide them. And getting back to this painting here now, I'm doing what I call the sparkles or the happy touches. When I take a little bit of titanium white and mix it with the blue, which is cobalt blue in this case, and right on top of the darker tones, just tap little spots. And those are the glistens, the sparkles, you know, the way the light hits the little tiny waves. This is evening, and water often calms down in the evenings. Not always, but in most cases, it settles down. And what happens is instead of these big waves, you have these little waves, and the water sparkles as it reflects the sky. Now I'm going to take a little bit of cadmium orange mixed with titanium white, and I'm going to highlight the clouds as well. It was flat looking before, but then it was only intended to be a one-layer demonstration painting for the workshop's purposes. And now we get to build it up and make it a little more interesting. And by adding this golden layer into the clouds, we get that kind of that cozy warmth that we feel at sunset. And if we're going to do it in the clouds, let's also reflect it in the water as well. So instead of those long rusty patches in the water that were foundational reflections, now we create a more sparkling kind of a approach. And speaking of sparkling, I'll use that same cadmium orange with titanium white and do a few more little dots in the water. Not meant to be a photographic reproduction of the location. It's really all about my impressions, all about the feelings that I had when I was there, and the essence that I wanted to capture. I'm putting a few of those little highlights down into the rocks as well. And by using highlights on top of foundational blocked in darker tones, we really create this kind of a textural, three-dimensional feel. And also in the trees. I'm just doing a dry brush effect here, which is basically loading up the brush with paint and just lightly dragging it across the surface of the trees. And that still exposes the dark undertone while giving a sparkle of reflection on the bark. And that gets the texture of the bark as well. You see? It's not so difficult, is it? If you're an aspiring painter, or if you're just a serious hobby painter, or if you're not serious and just like to have fun, look at what you can do. In just moments, create this beautiful little scene that just makes you want to get a blanket and wrap it around yourself and sip on a hot cup of tea while you watch the sun go down. Well, this is almost getting done here. Some of the red that I'm using, this is alizarin crimson mixed with titanium white. And also I'm using a beautiful, I guess it's a cadmium orange mixed with alizarin crimson as well. That's also very beautiful. By using that reddish tone, we get this warmth. Instead of being just a cold sunset, we add the warmth of the reds. It's a subtle little hint, but it works. Now, I'm putting it throughout the far shore, and I'm not making it solid. I'm just putting little dots of it. Once again, creating the contrast between the dark zones and the light zones. It's starting to feel like a beautiful evening on the lake. So there is an 11 by 14 scene here. It's not a big one. And it's typically what I use to demonstrate my workshop lessons. I'm going to just go back and reinforce the trees a little bit here. The little ones that are just kind of little birch trees that are just hanging out on the shore. Not really thick, not really overpowering, But it's that view through. It's that feeling that you're looking through something, trees, that they they just seem to be almost like a window, and it makes looking beyond even more interesting, I think. There you go. I'll put a little bit of red into it as well, so it's not so cold. Never use just white. Always some cadmium orange or some red or yellows. Well, not too many yellows. Stick to the oranges. They're a little more embracing, which is another term I like to use. Colors to me are either repelling, meaning they push people away, or they're compelling, so they draw people's attention in. And that's what I'm trying to do here is be compelling. I really want to create that vibe for you. I really appreciate you hanging out with me here today. And hopefully if you are in the area, we can have you join one of my workshops. Just email me at robertmcafee@gmail.com. That's Robert McAfee with 2 F's and 2 E's. And we'll catch you next time right here on The Robert Painter on YouTube.